Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Morton. My pronouns are she, her. I am the artist and studio manager here at Baltimore Clayworks, and we are thrilled that you all have joined us. I would like to acknowledge that I'm joining from my office located on Piscataway and Susquehannock land, currently known as Baltimore, Maryland. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our virtual artist talk given today by Brion Lipschutz. He has been with Baltimore Clayworks about 11 years and a springboard artist for about 5 years. This past October, he traveled to Hungary to attend a ceramic workshop at the International Ceramics Studio with British ceramic artist David Binns. For more information about our artist talks, please visit our virtual library at baltimoreclayworks.org. And I will now turn it over to Brion.
All right. So we're just going to jump right into this. So flying from Baltimore to Hungary, sorry, I don't have the Hollywood budget to animate a plane like Indiana Jones flying across the ocean. But you fly to London, have a 6-hour layover at Heathrow, and then fly into Budapest, which is about a 2-hour, 2.5-hour plane ride. You can see that Hungary is smack dab in the middle of Eastern Europe. And like most Eastern Europe countries, had been in the sort of sphere of the Soviet Union at one point. Budapest itself is a very old city on the Danube. When I was there, I was only there for a day, so I didn't get to see a lot. The Danube was not very blue the day I was there. It was mostly green. And it's an amazing city, actually. It's you really feel how old the city is, like most major Eastern European cities like Vienna and others, Prague, things like that. The architecture, I'm going to backtrack just a quick second. I'm an architect, been practicing for 40 years. And as Rebecca said, I have been at Baltimore Clayworks for about 10, 11 years and have been a springboard artist for about 5 or 6 years. So when I travel, I tend to take a lot of photographs of buildings, architecture. And there's in Budapest, there's an amazing eclectic collection of architecture from classical to Eastern influenced architecture. They also have quite a large farmers market that was quite stunning, and that's the picture on the lower left, and the picture next to it is the entrance. So I was there for just a day and then took a car service to Kecimek, which is about an hour south of Budapest. Kecimek is a fairly small city. For some reason, it means goat pass. Have no idea why. But it is also referred to as the, as I wrote, the orchid, anyway, it is in the middle of their farm belt, basically. And Hungary is known as a farming country. Interestingly, apricots and apricot brandy is a large staple of the country. As you can see, they're building the public buildings in Kecimek date from the 1680s to the 1800s. And it's, again, the public buildings are quite stunning. Actually, they're very interesting to see around the central square, which all these buildings are. It's not on any river. It seems like was probably in the middle of two crossroads in ancient times and just became a city. Also, interestingly, they have a very interesting museum, the sort of history of musical instruments. And that was a very interesting museum to go through and see all these various musical instruments and from large lutes to large piano type of instruments. They also have a farmer's market, farm to table. As I said, it's really in the middle of their farming community. We went out to dinner quite a bit. The food there is quite good. It's an eclectic mix of influences from Eastern Europe and Western Europe, and the ubiquitous pizza. I guess you can find pizza almost anywhere around the world. So the International Ceramic Studio was opened in 1978. As you can see from this drawing, it's an amazing collection of buildings, interconnected buildings. The facilities include a large number of kilns and studios for visiting artists and workshops. And one of the interesting things about the ICS is every time an artist visits, whether it's a well-known, internationally recognized ceramic artist, or someone like me who's just starting out and just sort of trying to learn how to craft ceramic objects, they encourage every artist to leave one piece for their collection. And we were fortunate enough to be able to go into their archives, their collection, and see what they've accumulated over the years. They exhibit very little of what they have. They store all of their accumulated objects in the basement spaces of these buildings that we were told was also used where the World War II Hungarian resistance fighters would store their material, food and weapons. That may be more urban legend than fact, so we're not sure, but the collection is amazing. They need a museum to be able to display everything they've accumulated over the years. The grounds are really quite beautiful, and the series of courtyards that the buildings open onto have quite a lot of ceramic objects, sculptures throughout. As you can see, that they have several wood-burning kilns that are out in the courtyards. These are used quite a bit by visiting artists, as well as the 4 gas kilns and the large collection of electric kilns. The studios vary from individual artist studios to large open studios. We were in the studio in the lower right for the 2 weeks I was there. When I was there, working with David, I was the only participant of the workshop. So David and I were able to work together individually for 2 weeks. While I was there, there were 2 young American artists there in residency, in the middle of their 6-week residency. And they also had a Hungarian artist symposium And the sort of middle picture on the bottom is one of the Hungarian artists working on her ideas for this symposium. There were 8 or 9 Hungarian artists. And we had dinner with them a couple of nights that were hosted by the ICS. So this is David Binns. He's quite a renowned ceramic artist, lives in Wales. He's recently retired from teaching ceramic arts at a number of universities in the north of England. And like I said, we had a number of dinners together with the symposium artists and the 2 young artists in residency. And the work that you see in the background is David's work. And the workshop was about learning how he works, how he develops his pieces. And so this is the work that I did, or some of the pieces that I started there and at the workshop. And in the lower left-hand corner, you can see some of the tools that were used. We use a sort of a stainless steel blade to carve away at the outside, and then wood to sort of push down into the center to create openings. The piece in the lower right is the piece that's has the unfired glaze on it. That's the piece that I left for their collection. We worked with 3 different types of clays. Porcelain, a clay that was labeled 254. It had a sort of a medium amount of grog, and a local Hungarian clay that had very little grog in it. It was mostly smooth, but it was a brownish type of color. And that's sort of the upper middle in the foreground. One of the other things that I explored were tiles, and the idea of carving away at the surface, and also creating stipples on the surface and then glazing them. We used, David brought his formula for the glazes that he likes to use, and that's what we worked from. But we noticed that the glazes were a lot lighter than what he was used to when he created them in his home in England. The only thing that was different was that we used a local feldspar in mixing the glazes, and David thinks that that's the reason they came out lighter. So the bottom 3 images are images of 3 of the pieces that I think were pretty successful. The middle one is a porcelain body. The one on the left, I believe, is the 254 clay, and the one on the right was the local Hungarian clay. So you can see what the idea of sort of shaving or carving away and creating these ridges, both horizontally and vertically, is the sort of aesthetic of the pieces. Couple more pieces. I was also taken with the idea of carving away at a big block of clay, though it is hollowed out in the middle all the way through. So what's my inspiration as an architect and as a ceramic artist with limited experience at this point? So these slides are some of the images that I find particularly appealing and find inspiration for my current work, which I'm doing here at Baltimore Clay Works. These are very interesting pieces, art pieces. Obviously the image in the middle and the lower part of the slide is also one of David's pieces. As an architect, I also find inspiration from buildings, the way buildings are, the massings of buildings and the way they are assembled or carved away to create openings and planes, and also the shade and shadow that are created by the manipulation of surfaces of buildings. Also find inspiration from nature. And I think whether it's a natural occurring element, like the top picture of, and also a man-made naturalistic wall that also harkens back to nature. I found this picture of this iceberg particularly appealing because it has very similar kinds of cleft and carved surfaces that we were working towards in our work in Hungary. And also there's, again, man-made and natural inspiration from the stone. And what's interesting is the scale of elements. The picture in the lower left is actually buildings. Those are not small. Those are probably 30 to 40 feet tall. And they make an interesting composition, both as a building, but also inspiration for ceramic pieces. So this is the tile piece that I made in Hungary, framed and hung on a wall. And I like to think that there's, as I say, a memorable story or form follows a predictable path unpredictably